Welcome to another episode of the Fascia Masters podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how to navigate through the holiday season. And during the holidays, of course, there's more events, more parties, more food, maybe food we're not used to, or alcohol. And this can be a pretty big shock to the body, and it can also throw us off a little bit. So it's important to know how to navigate through the holiday season properly so that you're waking up feeling pretty decent. You're not feeling all sluggish and gross. You're doing a little bit of a protocol before you indulge, after you indulge, so that you're starting to feel good. Your body's still regulated. So we'll be talking about a lot of different ideas and things that you can do during the holiday season. So let's start off, Deanna. What's like the very first thing that you would recommend to somebody? Let's say you have a very clean, healthy diet. You don't really consume much alcohol, but of course you decide to have a few more glasses of wine or beer, and there's events after events after events. Like, it's crazy how many events can happen, and a lot of them are like many days in a row, where it can get exhausting at the same time, even if you're not a social person, where you and I, like, we're social, but at the same time we're still pretty introverted, and it can be very tiring. So what's like the very first thing you would recommend for somebody to navigate the holiday season?
So I think the first thing to understand is really how our bodies are designed to function, and then place us into the perfect storm of December where, yes, we are basically flogging our liver. We're socializing all the time. So I would love for people, first and foremost, to understand that what is so important is, let's talk about the tongue, first of all. The tongue, of course, is designed to talk as well as to chew. So these are two very different actions from this same muscle. And we've mentioned before on other podcasts that I don't actually think it's a good idea to like be social while you're eating, because then talking is going to take precedent over the chewing. So then we end up swallowing whole food into our gut. And also when we're talking, we're less conscious of proper breathing. So no matter what it is that we're, putting in our mouths, if this is the scenario, now we're getting whole chunks of food in the gut. And if we're not breathing properly, this area is cold. We're probably standing with incorrect posture. So now we're compressing that organ. So we're really not able to break down the food or absorb the food. And then, that's just going to cause stress for the gut. So the first thing is just understanding what we should be doing. We really want to be chewing that food properly until it's a liquid. There's an enzyme in the mouth that only exists in the mouth for that pre-breakdown. So when we're talking and we're shaking hands with people and we're not really paying attention and we're interacting socially, we forgo this very important step. And so down the road, that's going to cause stomach issues. Also, we have this liver, this beautiful organ. All of the blood in the body passes through the liver. So the liver can break down any poisons, which can be alcohol, chemicals, processed foods. And the thing is too, if we're going and we're having lots of parties and cocktails and appetizers and then rich traditional foods that are full of fats and whatever, we don't have the same control as to what we're also putting in our body. So whether you're conscious of what you eat or not, again, the frequency, as you mentioned, how, it's not just a one event that we're doing something, it's probably party after party for days in a row. So basically this system of ours gets overloaded, very stressed. It can't do its job well. So we've put together a little video to show people how to navigate this storm that they're going to go into, kind of like an athlete preparing for a big event.
Yep, a bit of a warm-up.
Exactly, a warm-up and a cool-down. Mm-hmm. So basically, we're going to share 3 different positions. The very first one, and these are using a towel, so simple to do, and literally 10 minutes. 10 minutes before your event. If you can do 10 minutes after your event, even if you just do one or the other, it's going to make a positive difference. Mm-hmm. So, the first one is the belly. Mm-hmm. And of course, we want to activate the diaphragm. We've already shared so many times that 84% of weight loss comes through proper exhalation. So the very first thing we want to do is really engage this muscle and give it that pre-game, that workout, so that we turn on the wonderful energy activation from breathing diaphragmatically. We're pulling more oxygen into the body so our systems can work really, really well as we're connecting to that full exhalation, so that we're basically, again, just kind of training ourselves, warming up before the event of the party. And then when we do it after, it's a lovely thing to do as well, because just like after you do a workout, there's lactic acid buildup because you're pushing your body more than what you would normally do if you weren't doing this. And we want to help break down all of the chemicals. Again, if we're drinking more, if we're eating really fatty, rich foods, the liver has to process all of that. So if we don't give it the energy, then it starts getting clogged. It's the body's filter. So as we put more and more stress on the liver, it gets backed up and it can't function properly. And then we start feeling things like bloating. And if you already have gut issues, that's just going to ramp up the problem entirely. And again, dehydration as well. You know, like a lot of people that are going to be drinking more, the body becomes dehydrated. You might have headaches. You might feel nauseated. All of these things, if we can really turn on the body's breath and keep these organs regulated, we can help navigate. It doesn't mean you won't feel not so great if you've overindulged, but you can certainly minimize the negative consequences of the indulgence so that you can, you know, step up the next day and still do your pants up because bloating is a real thing, right?
Totally. And a lot of people think that, oh, I'm gaining all this fat or this weight during or after the holiday season. But a lot of the time it's just water weight, it's bloating, and it's just how effective is your body at ridding that inflammation, that temporary inflammation from your body. So, okay, as a comical highlight, be silent at dinner. Don't be social. Don't talk to people.
Hilarious. Yeah.
But no, like, of course you're going to be like communicating, talking, but try not to be like the number one biggest chatterbox at the table kind of thing. Try to eat, make that as your practice of eating and nutrition, and then having that protocol before or after is going to be a huge benefit to everybody. But then what I'm thinking of is also getting your electrolytes in as well. So this is what I like to do. If I know that I'm going to an event or to a party and I'll be consuming more alcohol than I typically would, or food or something, then I like to do an electrolyte powder before I go to bed. And then in the morning, I do like some sprinkles of Celtic sea salt. I just recently purchased this and I love it, with lemon water. And then that's like a really good just way to kickstart the morning, because
Nice liver flush.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And sure, you may have had a lot of sodium from the previous night, but you want to be able to get the proper minerals in a proper type of salt to be able to rehydrate your cells properly.
Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely. Because definitely we get into that dehydration mode, and it is the inflammation. I love that you said that it's not the weight gain. It's impossible to gain 10 pounds of fat over a weekend. It's inflammation that gets created. And just like an injury to your knee, if we're overtaxing our gut, that's an injury to the stomach organ. It's an injury to the liver. So the body responds by sending helpers, that inflammation. So now we have all this awesome potential energy that we just need to heat up. So when we connect to that breath, or even better, if you can maintain that proper breath while you're going through your party event, you know, then you can really help to regulate things. And it's not that we don't want people to, you know, enjoy, like, you know, people are passing around appetizers. Just be a little more conscious of it. So if you're in the middle of a conversation, don't throw an appetizer in your mouth, but where then you're forced to, oh, you know what, let me just swallow this so I don't like have spinach in my teeth or something. Like, chew the appetizer and then have the conversation, you know, like, just be mindful. It's really about being the observer of yourself and being mindful of these moments and navigating that way.
And there's a phrase that you've said in the past. It's not what you eat, it's how you eat. And that's referring to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So a lot of it comes down to, yes, our body needs fats. Obviously, it comes down to different kinds of fats that you're consuming and the quality of the fats. But still, if you can chew properly and you're swallowing it more as a liquid. I remember even when I was younger, you would say that you want to chew your food well enough so that you could be able to suck it through a straw. I know that's like a disgusting visual, but similar to that. You want to chew it well enough so that you're not swallowing these whole foods, because that's going to be taxing your stomach a lot more to break that down and then passing that through the entire system. So I think that's huge. But I wanted to mention where people can find this protocol that you just talked about. So it's actually 3 positions you're showing using a rolled up towel.
Yes.
And we're going to have this directly on our website You'll find this either both in the blog section and in our podcast section, but you have to find this episode, how to navigate the holiday season, and you'll see that video below. And then, yeah, as Deanna mentioned, perform that like daily if you can, even twice a day. But I would say, because if somebody asked, should I be doing block therapy before or after a workout, I would typically say before a workout to prepare your body properly for what you're doing, bring your body into proper alignment. Now, similar to what we're eating, prep your body properly so that it can process the food well. But hey, if you're feeling gross and bloated and whatever, then you can follow that protocol after. But how about when people wake up the next day and they're a little hungover? That's another great protocol for them to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, this is the protocol that I do in the morning before I go out of bed, because it's so simple to do. I've got my block sitting beside me in my bed. Before I'm even really totally awake, I'll just roll over onto my belly. I'll place it right there, spend however long. Then I move it to the ribs. And then by the time you wake up, you've got all this wonderful heat. You're able to move the waste from the day before more effectively out of the body. Again, you're oxygenating everything and you're detoxing in that same time. So even if you do it morning and bed before you fall asleep. But I remember once also years ago when we were talking about something, and I think it was after a Thanksgiving dinner and you had eaten a ton of turkey and gravy and whatever. I think you were like maybe 15 or 16. And I said, lie on the block now. And the thought of putting pressure into the belly when you're already full seems really counterintuitive. However, it wasn't long before you were feeling that you were almost ready to eat more because you...
Deanna, I was hungover. I was probably like 16, 17. Someone was feeding me drinks prematurely. But no, I do remember that actually, because we were at my parents' house and I think I partied the night before and then I ate too much food, didn't feel good. And then I'm like, there's no way that I'm lying on the block right now. There's no way. And then that was the turnover event where I'm like, oh, okay, wow, I'm finally feeling better.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
And a really great way to approach that, if you're like, okay, like I just can't even imagine lying on this or the towel, is lie on your back and place something, whether it's a hardcover book, if you don't have a block, or a rolled up towel, place it right on the belly button, and then add pressure with your hands and just breathe through the belly. So as you're inhaling, feel that belly expand. And then that in itself is going to start to help to heat that inflammation. It's going to support the organs because, of course, when we're breathing diaphragmatically, these organs are getting a continual massage. And massage increases heat. It increases energy. So it increases all of the functions of the organs so that they can perform optimally. Think about if you kept putting big chunks of something into a container and then eventually the stuff you were putting in was more than what the container could hold. Like if it's a cardboard box, you're going to get cracks in the box. Leaky gut. I mean, this is really what leaky gut is. We're putting all of this stuff into the stomach. And then because it's not liquid, it's starting to basically crack, right? We're getting these fissures in the lining of the gut. Or of the stomach organ. And then we get a leak. And then that's not good because that's going to be, toxic and poisonous to the system. And again, more inflammation. And now we're attracting more parasites and all of these things. And again, I just want to reference Gary Brecka because when you showed me that video, I was so excited. If you want to share what it is.
He's the coolest guy. This was the
oxygen one.
Yeah. I forget exactly word for word what he said, but he said, disease can't exist in the presence of oxygen. Yes, disease cannot exist in the presence of oxygen. That's a powerful statement. And that was just like a short clip I saw.
Yeah.
But he was saying, if there's one thing that you could get out of what I'm saying in today's lecture, it's that phrase.
In fact, I think he even mentioned, and maybe we can even share this video because it was so amazing, but of all of the research that they've ever done, what they know for sure is disease can't exist in the presence of oxygen.
That is so cool to see because it's not like we're telling people to necessarily perform the Wim Hof method or to forcefully pull a bunch of oxygen into your body at once. Now, I like doing that at times, and I do feel amazing after. I find it as a stress reliever. I feel a lot calmer. I feel more clear-headed. But we're talking about unlocking the body to rid those physical barricades so that more cells are now awakened to receive oxygen. And when we're breathing through the diaphragm, we can pull in up to 6 times the oxygen absorption because we're not breathing shallowly through the muscles in the upper chest where the oxygen's only touching maybe a quarter of the portion of your lungs, where a majority of the alveoli are in the base of the lungs. So you just want to be able to consistently breathe through the diaphragm to pull the air deep enough into the lungs to increase optimal absorption of the oxygen. So we're not pulling in 6 times the amount of air, we're pulling in more air, breathing through the diaphragm, but the absorption is now going to be amplified because we're able to bring the air deep into the lungs.
And it's the whole concept too of connecting to the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest phase. So we want to be sympathetic, but we need to be balanced with the parasympathetic. And so many people, when they're breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, are in the stress overdrive. They have adrenal fatigue. So they're basically living in this sympathetic state. We need the balance of the two.
So this is, sorry to interrupt, but this is a perfect statement from what you just shared with the positions that people can be performing. Is the first position is the belly position, that when you breathe through the diaphragm, that's already triggering your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. So if you're able to perform this before you eat and indulge, at least your system's a lot more calm, so that it can be able to break down the food properly and digest and put that food to good.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like anything, right? Like if we're already hyper stressed and then you have a really hard day, you can break. If you're very calm and suddenly you've got that same addition of stress, you can navigate that because you're able to process more efficiently. So if I'm having an awful day, but I understand how to keep my system healthy, then that one day isn't going to keep adding up and creating more to the point where you might break.
Right.
And that's just it. Like, again, during the month of December, I mean, you might have more parties in one month than you have the rest of the year, depending on your lifestyle, of course.
Yeah.
But not everybody parties in December, but because parties are so prevalent and you want to be able to enjoy and you want to feel good, because that's when we're social. We feel good when we look good too. So if suddenly, Christmas comes around and you've been indulging and now you do have that 10 extra pounds of inflammation and your clothes don't fit, you're probably not going to really enjoy your time, because if you don't feel good inside yourself, it doesn't matter how much fun the external party is. You're navigating your body through how you feel.
And another example is, I'm relating this back to working out, but when I was first working at Popeyes, the supplement store here in Winnipeg, there was this, I don't know if this is a myth, but I think it is now more of a myth. There's this anabolic window, and I would always say that. So within 30 minutes after you work out, you have to take in 30 grams of protein in your anabolic window. But now a lot of people are saying that's actually not optimal because your body's still in a sympathetic state after you train. It can take a couple hours for your body to really calm down and trigger back to that parasympathetic state. So eating immediately after you work out isn't necessarily ideal. You want to wait for your body to relax, calm down, and then take the food in. So it's not this whole concept, like our bodies are too brilliant to think, oh, my workout is now going to waste because I didn't eat within 30 minutes. That's bogus. The body's brilliant. You could wait 3-4 hours and then eat, and then you'll be fine. And I've put this to the test. It's not like, oh, I lost all my muscle mass because I'm not eating 30 minutes after. Anyways, that's just like an interesting statement as well, and just something there's so many myths out there. There's so many different concepts and people's opinions, and maybe that's just a marketing thing to get you to consume more protein powder or something.
I think it also takes time. I mean, I remember for how many years did we keep hearing about kale being the superfood, and now we're hearing, oh, actually, it can cause kidney stones and cause other issues in the body. So
all the oxalates.
yeah, and so sometimes it takes a while. Like you might think, look at what's in this food, but until we actually have had months, years, even decades of proof of consuming it in a certain way to see the fallout, you know, that's the reality of the world that we live in. We jump into things very quickly because, yeah, I mean, people that are health-minded, they want to do what they believe is right to do. And then some people tend to go overboard. And it's like, oh, I'm going to drink a kale smoothie every single day. But
well, and that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's funny because this brings back the whole idea of the principle of balance, where we're not saying, hey, don't eat kale, don't eat spinach. You can absolutely do that. Just try, maybe don't eat a full kale salad or a smoothie or a spinach salad every single day or multiple times a day, because sure, that could add up to more oxalates in your body, and that can create the, what are they called?
Kidney stones.
Kidney stones.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, again, it's just the principle of balance. And the one thing that we can always control is our breath, which is the biggest thing we talk about. Even on my YouTube, it's amazing. Like, I was reviewing my YouTube the other day, and I'm like, almost in every single video, I show the belly position because it can benefit nearly anything and everything.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's just it. When you said, like, it really all comes down to balance. And here's the point of December. For many people, we get out of balance with the amount of socializing. And not only that, you know, we tend to, if you're at a party, I mean, I generally go to bed at 9:30. You know, I like to try to be asleep before 10:30.
I was in bed at 8:45 last night.
Yeah. And then you go to parties and you might be out until 1 or 2 in the morning. And I mean, now you're throwing your system off even from that other perspective.
Yeah.
So that rest and digest, you know, turning on that ability to help you navigate through the holidays. Doesn't mean it's going to take away all the consequences, but if you can feel better for it and you can keep your body activated so that, you know, by January, it's not, oh my gosh, now I have to go on a diet because we already know they don't work.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And like, we could get into the concepts of different foods you can take to help detoxify your body nearly daily. And those are things that we probably do, or I know I do, on a daily basis. I have certain foods that I eat just to make sure that I have my base level solidified.
Yeah.
So I know that, okay, I'm doing my certain morning routine that can help detoxify my body after I indulged last night. And then you start feeling better almost immediately. Now, people's morning routines are going to change person to person, but don't give that up. Try to keep doing that throughout the entire holiday season. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was anxiety or social anxiety. Like, it's such a real thing. There's only a few people I know that don't have any form of social anxiety. One being my dad. Like, he's the biggest chatterbox. He's the biggest gem in the world, but he can just go into any scenario, any situation and talk. And like, good for him. Like, I'm envious of that. And sure, I can to an extent, but if my system's feeling off, I'm not the most chatty, extroverted person in that moment. So I think being able to, if you are anxious or you have social anxiety, doing that belly position before just helps regulate the breath, decompresses your belly. I forget all those nerves that are lining the gut. I was
The enteric nervous system?
Could be. Yeah, I was thinking, we talked about it in a previous podcast when we did the gut-brain connection. And as soon as you decompress and start triggering that, then you immediately start feeling calmer.
Yeah.
And then you're just more in the moment because people are too in their head. We want to be a little bit more in our body. And then you don't have to overthink, oh, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? Just relax and just go with the flow and decompress, breathe. Whenever you're feeling anxious, focus, take 5 deep diaphragmatic breaths, and that alone is already just going to help relax and bring you more in the moment so you're not all chaotic in your head.
Yeah, and that's a great point because, I mean, you know, suddenly, you know, not all families get along. I mean, we're so fortunate because we do have a family that really loves each other, and we typically, for the most part, get along as a family, but lots of families don't have that. And now you're forced to be in this scenario with family, and that, you're right, that can cause a whole other level of anxiety. And then there's travel. I mean, traveling around Christmas time, holy smokes, or around the holiday season, can be really, stressful because of flight delays. And then just the whole thing of flying affects your whole system. So again, it's just kind of a recipe. It's a perfect storm to throw your body in a really negative spiral. So to be able to navigate, to manage what's going on, it just gives you that opportunity to enjoy this process a little bit more. Enjoy the parties, the fun, the celebrations, the traditions, because that's what it should be about, is really, you know, connecting with those who you love and having a great time together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think another thing which you can incorporate right away to prevent yourself from feeling awful the next day is be conscious of what kind of alcoholic beverages you're consuming as well. And what I mean by that is try not to have something that's loaded with sugar. So if you're doing rum and cokes, maybe a vodka soda lime or something along those lines can be more beneficial than something loaded with sugar. Because if you're just having 1-2 drinks in the evening, that's not going to really cause a ton of harm, obviously dependent on the person, but you want to be smart with the type of alcohol you're consuming. And many people have probably heard that, oh, tequila is probably one of the, quote, healthier alcohols that you can consume. So sure, like do that on a cube of ice and mix it with soda and lime. Like there's your healthy margarita kind of thing. But if people are hammering beer or a ton of red wine, now a glass of red wine isn't necessarily going to be really harmful, but these are just ideas to become more conscious of what you're consuming, because yeah, if you have a couple bottles of wine, you're going to be feeling pretty haggard the next day. You're not going to be feeling good. But there's times where I could have the equivalent amount of alcohol from, let's say, rum to tequila. I feel significantly better the next day if I'm having tequila or even vodka. And I think, again, another random thing to say, but it's just the reality. Like majority of people consume alcohol, and we want to be able to still be relatively conscious and smart on the kinds of alcohol that we're consuming.
Yeah. And then, you know, having that water between each, like that's a great way. Like it's often the pacing of, you know, like you want to get into the party and have fun. So people do like a whole bunch of shots. Like if you can pace yourself,
yeah,
you know, have food in between, have some water in between. That's always a good way. And, you know, likely you'll have less if you, you know, just consciously go in with those thoughts.
So let's run through that. This would be my idea of an ideal day to navigate the holiday season.
Okay.
You wake up, you have your Celtic salt, a little sprinkle of that with lemon water. Great. Then do whatever healthy protocol you do. I do a healthy smoothie. Then I try to eat healthy throughout the day. Before you go out, do that belly position first thing in the morning as well. Mm-hmm. If you can do the side ribs as well, perfect. Before you go out, do that same protocol with the fascia decompression, the belly, the side ribs.
Actually, that's sharing the front ribs.
Oh, the front ribs. Sorry. Yeah. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
And then, so perform those positions before you go out.
Yeah.
Now you enjoy your time. Try not to consume too much sugar when you're away or when you're at the event. Try to mix in definitely more waters.
And try to chew instead of chew and talk. Like try to do one and then the other instead of both at the same time. To me, that is such a big one.
Exactly. This is why we're doing this, because I'm already forgetting certain things. But try to chew more before you speak, mm-hmm. and make that a conscious habit, even when you're having a full meal as well. Then when you get home, you can perform those 3 positions again with the towel or your block, and then try to have electrolytes before you go to bed.
And then also while you're eating, like if you happen to be sitting at a dinner table and you're not the one talking, just put your hand on your belly for a minute and just say, okay, am I breathing from that right space? Is my belly getting bigger with the inhale and smaller with the exhale? And if you realize you're not, see if you can bring it back down to that space, because that action is going to help the digestion. It's also going to help the liver process everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Totally. So I think that's like a really good recipe that people can navigate throughout the holiday season, but also take this to any time of the year.
Yeah.
Like you can do this at any time. If there's like a big party or you're going on a bachelorette party or whatever the case is, like, cause I had one of those this year and wow, like they can be pretty intense. And
I'm way past that.
Yeah. I'm sharing my perspective on this, but exactly, birthday parties, other events, whatever it is, this is an amazing protocol for you to follow. That's just gonna help. And if you're already doing a lot of these things, that's amazing. But I'm really curious to see how people respond to this. If it makes people feel better and navigating the holidays so that they're actually feeling healthier, less anxious, less bloated, less brain fog even. And then, hey, if you do the Wim Hof method, sure, go right ahead. Like that can definitely help. Saunas, cold plunges. I put my cold plunge away because that's just a little too ridiculous in this weather, but that's a pretty solid recipe.
I think so. And we'd love to hear how you do with it.
Absolutely. So I think that's voice crack. I think that's probably the basis of what we're trying to get across here. To find that protocol of the positions.
Yeah.
Again, I just want to reiterate that will be on our website. So you can go to our blog section and or our podcast section, find this blog, Navigating the Holiday Season, or the podcast, Navigating the Holiday Season, and then you'll see the video directly on there. And of course, it's free to do, free to try. If you've never done block therapy before, use the rolled up towel. If you had, you probably already know the positions, but just do those. Spend 3 to 5 minutes in each position and your body will thank you. So if that's everything, then we'll wrap up.
Absolutely.
So that was really cool.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays. Enjoy it. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. And again, more information on block therapy, what we're talking about on our YouTube channel, Block Therapy. My YouTube channel is Quinn Castellan. I show a lot of this similar stuff as well. Website is blocktherapy.com. So that's again where you're going to be able to find these protocols we're talking about. And other than that, let us know. Let us know if you're watching this on YouTube in the comment section if this has been helping you out and if you think this is a good idea. And if you have any additional tips to share them in the comments below because we don't know everything. If you have other ideas that we could even incorporate or try, by all means, we're open to that. So thank you for tuning in and we'll see you in the next episode.